Hello, and welcome to another episode of Boundless Body Radio. I'm your host, Casey Ruff, and today we have another amazing guest to introduce to you now. DeNitra Davis is an advocate, coach, and educator from Nutritional Knowledge, which provides educational services to help prevent, reverse, and decrease the instances of chronic illnesses by focusing on optimizing lifestyle changes. DeNitra has successfully improved her lifestyle and reversed chronic disease and illness in her own life, and now she endeavors to join others on their journey to optimal health. She has given guidance and direction to others to help improve their health outcomes and enlightens others about lifestyle and dietary changes that will restore their health and increase their quality of life. While DeNitra appreciates her personal journey, she has wanted to better understand the science of her experience and has pursued that science, studied extensively, and acquired the aligned certifications associated with health optimization. She is a certified coach practitioner with the Nutrition Network, a metabolic health practitioner with the Society of Metabolic Health Practitioners, and a keto and carnivore health coach with Keto Adapted. She uses her 25 years of experience educating to reach people at all levels of understanding and awareness. DeNitra Davis, what an absolute honor it is to welcome you to Boundless Body Radio.
Thank you, Casey. I appreciate being here. Thank you so much.
It is such an honor to host you here. You came very highly recommended from my good friends, Natalie Champ and Robin Dobbins. Robin and I have hung out at several different conferences now. We've stayed together at different conferences. I've met a lot of her family. Just know that since you've already appeared on their podcast, Keto Biology, and that episode is set to release at some point, whatever experience you had there is going to be much more intense than the line of questioning you're going to get around here. Those women are just really serious journalists and really get down to the core of the issue. So just know that they're much better podcast hosts than I am, and this will be a lot more chill.
All right. I appreciate a little chill in my life. So thank you very much.
You
Yeah,
did
they
come.
both are really great. I met them through Metabolic Revolution back in October. We were in DC together, doing this same thing, is just trying to get the message out about we can be better, we can live longer,
That's
and
amazing.
without all of the gimmicks that right now we're living under.
That's amazing. Yeah, and they are wonderful people, and they, like I said, recommended you very, very highly and had a great time with our conversation. They did try to make me promise that I would hold on to this episode and drop it after they release theirs, so it doesn't look like they stole my interview and vice versa. Maybe I'll just release it as soon as we're done with this conversation and really piss them off. We'll see.
All right.
I do want to say also that nutritional knowledge is an awesome play on words. As you kind of write it out, it's new KNEW for nutritional. So that's a very, very clever play on words. And we're going to get to your own personal story. We're going to get to your work. But that's kind of where I wanted to start. And it's something that I hear you talk about and is all over your website. The idea that if people know the information, you know, they're going to be more likely to do something good with that information. And you also hear that, by and large, people don't want to do that. And food tastes really good. And you can know all you want about nutrition, but donuts or cake, like it's too tempting for a lot of people. So my first question to you is, in your experience, when people do get this knowledge or understand that there's a different way, it's different than maybe what the medical system has been teaching them for a very long time, different than what their doctors are saying, different than what the American Heart Association is saying. In your experience, by and large, do you feel like people are willing to change and be open to this information as long as they have that wisdom and knowledge?
That's a great question. And absolutely, I will say it takes time to get them where they really know, right? So we can introduce them to some things and it sounds different and then it sounds just like the noise that they've been hearing, and then it becomes this competition between the noise where somebody is saying plant-based is better, now here you are saying meat is better. And so when you introduced me, you talked about me wanting to know the science. You can't argue with the science, you can't argue with what the body needs. And so that's how I position it when I'm speaking to people who are skeptics. And what I'm finding is when they do get that information, they can't unknow it. To know that your body only thrives on protein and fat, you can't unknow that, right? Understanding what plants do to your body and having the experience, you can't unknow that. And so we're finding that the people that we're working with, the people in our community, we say try it for yourself. Don't believe me. Give yourself 7 days, right? And so once they hear the information, they try it for 7 days. Then it goes to 14 days, 21 days. I have people now that are at 2 years of doing this where they've maintained. Are they perfectionists in it? They're not. But do they know if they sit and eat a bowl of oatmeal and then turn around and eat a big sandwich and have a vegetable plate all in the name of being healthy, they now know that that's not healthy, and all of that is going to be sugar in their body. And so by and large, for me, if I can get to you which is not always easy, and get a good conversation. So one of the things that I require now, so that I don't have sound bites, if I'm going to talk to you, I need at least 90 minutes of your time. I need a commitment of at least 90 minutes before you can actually say you're doing it the way I teach it. Because what was happening is I was having, walking talks with people, and I would just start having these conversations. So they were running on a sound bite, if you will. All they heard was go eat meat, and then they would do it for a couple of days, and they're like, oh, I just can't do this meat. And what I finally figured out is that they weren't rooted in a good understanding, and they still had a major gap, and they were treating it like a diet. So
Mm,
when we move away from that diet mentality, yes, once somebody gets it, you can't unget it. It's
wow.
impossible. It's like riding a bike. Once you learn
Yeah.
it, you got it.
Yeah, no, in my experience, it's about the same. It's kind of why like we all have, coaching programs and we work with people, but once you start coaching in this way, you do get to a point where it's like, once you get the concepts, and yes, it's front loaded as far as the time that you need, and you need to unlearn a lot of things depending on your indoctrination. But once people get the hang of it, you almost really don't need to hold their hands very much. They can kind of go off on their own, and some people don't even have to be super strict with it forever. Like, but it does take that kind of help in the beginning. So I really appreciate that.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay. And before again we dive into your journey, you already mentioned something that I wanted to talk to you about. So I'm just going to ask it here. Tell us
Sure.
about your experience with the metabolic revolution.
Yeah, so it was amazing. I'm still on a high. I'm waiting for the next one. So I learned about it online just from, hanging out in these spaces, and booked the trip, went. It was an amazing thing. We just need more of it. Being able to, really fight for, one of the ones that I'm so passionate about, because I was a teacher, my husband is an educator, and I work with a lot of educators. So this idea around getting all of the processed foods out of the school districts, right? Just bringing that as an option, signing this petition has been amazing. I'm on a different show, and I've run it on there a couple of times to get people engaged. But the day that we were there, like, it was a major high. I will say that sometimes in these spaces it is, preaching to the choir, right? We're all here together. Of course, we're making the noise. We all agree that these changes to happen. We've had the experiences. For me, I'm like the person going after for the conversions, right? I'm looking for the people who have never heard it, like they don't know. Like, I like going and be a speaker somewhere where when I'm done, they're like, my mind is blown. Okay, I got to put my mind back together, right? But the metabolic revolution and the work that's being done is Jess is doing an amazing job. So I was proud to be a part of it. Um, Dragged my husband along, got a chance to see some of the prime people, Dr. Westman, Dr. Tony Hampton was there. So just being in the space where all these people, you've been watching them on the videos, was just great camaraderie for us to come together. And this is the only way we're going to be able to make these changes, is if we come together. So it was amazing.
I agree. And you've been around to things like that before. In fact, in listening to you, I know that you and I have been in the same room at least 2 or 3 times, be it a keto con or
Yeah.
a symposium for metabolic health, and definitely need to spend more time together next time that comes around. But that energy is just so infectious, and I'm always just blown away by this topic and its ability to generate passion, and the number of times that people want to know how to create content and want to get better at it and start things like this podcast. Like, we didn't, I mean, listeners, I didn't know how to do a podcast. Everything that you've created and you getting your message out, like, there's not just many other topics that would drive people to these lengths to be able to talk about, because it's such a powerful it's such a powerful message that changes so many lives. And Jess is a great example. You look at Jess Apple; she's like 4'6", weighs like 100 pounds, and she is an absolute force. Even if she doesn't have like a huge, loud voice, she has a very powerful voice. And hearing her tell her story at one of Dave Feldman's conferences was just absolutely inspiring. And her traveling from Israel to come do some of these things, it's so moving to see all that passion and yeah, to try to get that message out there to more people.
Yeah, and I made what I would consider a lifelong friend from that, Jackie and I, Hasfield, who was also a part of the metabolic revolution. That's how we met. We met in DC. I mean, she's come to Tennessee twice to support work that I'm doing here. I've met her in DC, and it literally was birthed out of the metabolic revolution. Kelly. Also, we went through the Nutrition Network together. So it's one big family of people who, however we can work together. Dr. Hampton has been, to Tennessee to work with me, Dr. Berry. So I just feel like I'm a part of a big family. If I need to stretch my arms out for reach to capture the converse that we're after, then I just feel like I have a big army working with me. And I think that's what the metabolic revolution spelled for me is you're not alone. We're not alone. And, somebody else is fighting. And how can you continue to promote the fight?
Yeah, I love that. And on that note, you made such a good point. I was going to bring this up as well. Is like we all have our voices and we all have our communities, whether that's local, like being in Tennessee, like Dr. Barry, or whether that's Dr. Hampton. I got to ask him the same question when we hosted him on our show a few years ago. It's like people can listen to me in the city that he's in Chicago and the poor areas, and they can listen to some white dude in the suburbs of Salt Lake City, and it's not going to carry the same weight and the same message of him talking to people in his community. And it's really powerful. And all of us have that level of influence in our own ways. And it's important that all of us find ways to share that message, regardless of what platform you choose, how you want to talk about it, who you want to talk to. You have a voice that's really important. You need to try to get it out there any way you can.
Absolutely. So my initiation into carnivore was the Black carnivore, A-Day Fox
Day,
is
yeah,
how I first, came to know that there was a real such thing and there were Black people doing it, right?
yeah,
That just seemed foreign to me. I had been following Westman, Eric Westman, through his Keto Made Simple. I was, following Maria Emmerich and Craig Emmerich, but you're right, that connection, that familiarity, that commonality that kind of joins you together. And I mean, it's really my desire to do that. I mean, I just will say that, a lot of times when I'm in these spaces, it's me, my husband, Dr. Hampton. We're growing that now. Dr. Barrett was with us in March. Dr. Kiltz, they all came to Tennessee for an event we did. And I mean, the room was filled with Black people who were hungry, literally hungry, to try to figure out how can I change the trajectory of my life. And I also am on a show, Hey Sister Girl, with G Brown and Robin Heron.
that's
And
right.
so we're here trying to, spread the message and, as my students used to would say, get in where you fit in, Miss Payne. So, well, I was Miss Payne then, I'm Miss Davis. It's like get in where you fit in. And so that's what we're doing. We're trying to figure out how to continue to connect the dots, give, what I call right information so that people can change their life forever. I mean, my clients and people we're working with in our community, I mean, it's phenomenal just to watch the changes, and then that also becomes a domino effect. Dr. Berry often says each one teach one. You've learned it, now go teach someone else. And so I see that in I live in a little town, considered a little town in Jackson, Tennessee. And I'm from Memphis, but I've been in Jackson for 6 years. And it's becoming a domino effect. I'm putting out a show this week and I'm calling it the ripple effect already, right? Because it's rippling through our community the way that the message is starting to take hold.
That's amazing. Wow. I even just saw just before jumping on this call that in Louisiana, I guess they're the first state to do something around seed oils. It's not going to start for the next few years, but I think they have to announce companies or restaurants. I didn't get all the details, but they're the first state to actually maybe not ban seed oils, but make companies disclose whether seed oils are in different things. And so you do see that the awareness is, hopefully changing and going the right direction. That's a step. We'll take that.
Right. That's what I say to school districts because my primary work, I work a lot with school districts where, we've already been told in 5 years they're going to reduce the sugar by 10%. Right. So I'm like, why are you waiting? I mean, they're actually waiting on the companies to get ready. I'm saying you can get ready now. You can start making offerings now that align to that. Can you? And I'm advocating with my parents. I just had a client who has a 6-year-old that had never had their A1C done. And just from us working together, she got her son's A1C done, and he was right at the pre-diabetic range. And so now she's advocating. She's writing letters to the school like, my son can't participate in donuts with dads. I'm not coming to moms and muffins anymore. What alternatives do you have so that my son is included? Right. And so those are the type of things that we want to start to change at its core so that everything is not surrounded around eating and then eating poorly, in the name of a treat.
Yeah,
And so
good
it's a
point.
great idea to bring dads and moms together to the school, but why does it have to be connected to, sugar, basically?
Yeah,
And
yeah.
yeah, so that's one of the things that I get excited about is as we continue to do this advocating, the idea of it trickling down into families to make a difference where parents don't feel like, oh, I got time. He's just a little kid. I did the same thing. No, we can start to change the trajectory now.
Especially when you're talking those numbers, like 10% is not like 50%. We're not slashing it by half. 10%, you could do that today easily. You might not even miss it at all. Like you could at least start down that path. So again, I love
Yep.
your work and I love you're getting that message out there. And now, yeah, let's go back and hear your story, how you kind of got wrapped up in poor health yourself, and how you were able to figure out some of this stuff. So how you were able to figure this out yourself and get, like we said, the knowledge about proper education.
Absolutely. So for me, of course, little nuances were happening to me. I would have dandruff, little eczema in my skin, darkness around my neck, really not thinking much about it. I was a walker, so I blamed, my foot pain on walking all the time. I needed another kind of shoe, only to find out that it was plantar fasciitis. Suffered with a little gout. I took red meat out, took seafood out, still had gout, and ultimately was diagnosed as pre-diabetic, but not even in that terminology, right? It was just like you're not diabetic, you're like borderline. And the doctor was like, you got a little touch of sugar and you need to watch it. So then I went through the whole high cholesterol, and so when I learned that I had high cholesterol and it was so closely tied to what I thought at that time, heart disease or something happening to your heart, I changed everything. I went to being vegetarian, I was vegan. I tell people I was a fancy nut eater. I didn't want mixed nuts. I wanted all my nuts separated. So I had a jar for every kind of nut. I was a honey nut Cheerio buyer with my almond milk because I was going to be healthy and I was getting bigger and bigger. I was in a lot of pain and didn't understand my pain sources. And so I started to dive in. I ultimately ended up having like a shoulder surgery for a rotator cuff that I thought was some tear, only to learn that it too was inflammation. I was told that my neck was degenerative. It was just all these things. The main thing that started to really kind of change the course for me is I was diagnosed with autoimmune lupus. And the lupus diagnosis was a huge wake up call. All the other things was like, girl, you just need to lose some weight, right? You need to change what you're eating. But the lupus diagnosis was huge because I had just lost a really close family member that had the same diagnosis. And so it was eye opening for me to get for real about what was happening in my body. And so I went down a rabbit hole trying to figure it out. And I first came upon, nightshade vegetables, understanding what nightshades were. So I was pulling out all the nightshades. I still wasn't losing weight. I still was trying to be vegetarian, although I was taking out nightshades, and I still wasn't getting well. And then I learned about keto, and so I give a shout out to Wendy Featherston, Black Girls Keto too. She had a conference. It's been several years now since I've gone to the conference, but I learned a lot with her under that umbrella. And really what I was learning then was how to do some switching. Like if you wanted, rather than eating a sweet potato, perhaps you want to try like a butternut squash. If you want to, not eat rice, maybe try cauliflower rice. Maybe you can make pizza crust this way. So that was a huge up for me to learn that it wasn't as harsh on my body, but I still wasn't getting the healing that I wanted. And so with the lupus diagnosis and taking out the nightshades, in 2021, I did a course with Dr. Westman. He had his first Keto Made Simple course. And I dived in, and the light bulbs really began to come on for me about what was really happening in my body. And so I was making these changes in my food, and I was very keto, right? And so if it had keto on it, I was keto. I didn't have a deep understanding. I learned who Maria Emmerich was, and that changed the game for me altogether. Her and Craig, what I call them is the clean keto people, right? So then I started really understanding inflammation and really what was keeping me sick. What was, because I had switched to like eating Rebel ice cream. Like I would drive an hour to go buy Rebel ice cream because it's keto, it's great for you, not really understanding the ingredients in it that still may have an impact on you. Net
Yeah.
carbs driving me crazy, right? So once I really understood inflammation and I started eating cleaner, then I started seeing better results. But for me, it still wasn't the it's like I was doing it. It still felt like a diet to me. It felt like I'm only doing this for a little while. And I would have these crashes because I'm also a sugar addict. So I would have these crashes where I would say, "Oh, I've been good for 3 weeks. I deserve a treat." And then I would run to the cookie store and binge, right? I'm a cake eater. I tell people I don't care who birthday it was. If I found out it was your birthday and you didn't have a cake, I was gonna make sure you had a cake. I was gonna run somewhere, pick up you a cake, a sheet cake, and have all four corners on it because that's where the most icing was. That's
Good
me
call.
with sugar, right? So what I ultimately needed to know, my mother calls me nosy. I know now that I'm curious. And so my curiosity just would not rest. And this is how I started getting involved with Society of Metabolic Health. Dr. Berry, actually, I went to Tennessee. I don't know if you know Amanda Decker. Um,
Of course, she's amazing.
yeah, so Amanda was having her first $10 event that was about 2.5 hours from my house. And so my husband and I drove there, sat in the gym. Dr. Berry was there, and she had these letters on her name that said MHP. I sat there. I didn't have AI at this time. I said, "What does this stand for? Mental health." So here I go up there to ask her. She told me about the metabolic health practitioner, and I literally came home that Monday and called Doug Reeves on the phone. I didn't know I was getting Doug because I didn't know who Doug was, but I was like, I'm going to San Diego. And that's how it all started evolving for me. And being there, and there is really my favorite place to go of all the things that I've done in this arena. The Metabolic Health Practitioner Summit is my favorite thing to do because it's so sciencey, because I'm a nerd, right? So just getting that firsthand information, I came home and everything changed.
Wow.
All the keto stuff went out the door. I'm like, no, this is why we sick, and this is this. I ended up getting a certification under Maria Emmerich and her husband as a keto and carnivore coach. And man, like that's been my journey, is just go be nosy. I've hung out with Dr. Berry at his summit, Dr. Hampton, I have him on replay. So I just went deep with the learning, and I'm just not the same person as you said earlier. And we agree that I can't unknow it. So even when there's a Snicker bar in front of me, I just know too much to eat a Snicker bar, right? Like it's like it sounds good, but I already know what it's gonna do to my body. So
Yeah. It's not worth it. Like it tastes good in the moment, but it just is not worth it. I'm a sugar addict as well, and
Yeah.
I can't stop. I don't stop myself. I know when I should, and I don't, and I pay the price, and it's just less and less times, worth it to go off my carnivore diet. So I really appreciate that. What an amazing journey that you've had. And yeah, Doug does such an amazing job putting on those conferences, and San Diego's one of my favorites as well. I sign up for it as soon as I'm able to the year before, so that I know I've got a spot and I'll be there. So I would encourage anybody to go check those out. And my audience fully understands that I'm the dumbest person in the room in most of these conversations. So I ask them forgiveness for me asking you what they all probably know, but I don't know actually that much about. Can you tell me a little bit about lupus? I know it's autoimmune related. I don't really know like what are symptoms, what happens when you have it. There was I used to live in Brazil for religious purposes, and one of the female kind of leaders had it. And I remember like the only thing I knew about it is she couldn't be out in the sun, which I didn't really understand very well. But can you tell us a little bit about lupus, or at least tell me? My audience already knows, but educate me.
Yeah, so how it happened for me was it really is a symptomatic diagnosis. So they have this category of about 12 things. If you have 7 of those things all at the same time, it's almost how we say metabolic syndrome, right? If you meet this criteria for metabolic syndrome, it's how they diagnose lupus. My first initial test that sent me to a rheumatologist was an anti-nuclear antibody test. We call it an ANA test. And it is supposed to be a test that's checking for inflammation. And so that was the first marker that there was an issue for me. And so my doctor sent me to a rheumatologist. The rheumatologist began to look at it as a lupus diagnosis or a connective tissue disease, which is all the same thing. So, what they say about lupus is that it is your body fighting against itself. Of course, you hear that there is absolutely no cure for it. When I asked my primary doctor at the time, how long do I have to wait before I take this test again? And it can be negative. And her statement to me was, this test, this lab will never be negative for you. It will always show up as positive. And I believe that. One of the things that I was having at the time was my eczema was very, very prevalent in my neck. I also was having bad dandruff. It wasn't what I would say is regular dandruff. It was bad. My scalp was just very, felt very infected. I also was highly overweight at that time. I've never had high blood pressure, and at the time there was no link to my blood sugar, even though reflectively I know that I was pre-diabetic, right? I had been diagnosed with pre-diabetes, but they were not making that connection. And so what I lived with was joint pain and swelling. The gout was on the list for it. And it was just all of that combination of things that were happening. So I went to one rheumatologist who gave me the diagnosis. And of course, at that time, it was a major shock to me. And so I went to another rheumatologist to see if that rheumatologist would say the same thing. And of course, they both said the same thing. But you mentioned earlier about the sunlight, and I have of course a whole different take on this. But at that time, you're right. I stayed far away from the sun because I always had these breakouts on my arm, on my neck. I mean, just rashes that just you would think that my skin was just being peeled away. Just wasn't a good feeling. So those were my symptoms. I was trying hard to change it, but what I know is that I was eating a lot of plant toxins. Because remember, I was trying to be vegan and vegetarian. And so that was my experience. And again, it didn't turn around, and I wasn't even aiming for it to turn around, to be honest with you. I was just trying to figure out how to be better. But as I started to be what I call, clean keto, more carnivore-ish, and then carnivore, the things start to change. So I was 4 years in, and my doctor, Dr. Yvonne Moore, who I actually met in Dr. Westman's Keto Made Simple, she's a gynecologist in Memphis. I go to her, and I just was sitting one day. I was like, I know the doctor said it would never be negative again. I reached out during one of my regular tests, and I just asked her, I said, hey, can you run this test for me? Sure enough, it's still negative. It was negative then, it's negative now. So I have no symptoms. And what I know is it's the sugar. It is the and things that metabolize as sugar. I tell people anything that is plant-based is sugar-based. People get mad at me. All plants are going to metabolize as sugar. Plant-based equals sugar-based. So I've done a whole science lesson when I'm working with my clients about simple carbohydrates, complex carbohydrates. Carbohydrates is a saccharide. It's going to be sugar. So I tell people, when you become vegan and vegetarian, you're only eating sugar. You're eating nothing else. Oh, but my beans are protein. Your body says it's sugar, right? And so for me, the whole loop is, I tell anybody that has that diagnosis, and I'll say it out loud to your audience, that if you have any autoimmune diagnosis, because for me nowadays, I say autoimmune means we don't know what it is, so we just dump it over in a category. And I said, if you have any autoimmune and you are still eating sugar and you are still eating plants, you will never know if you can get better. I've not met one person that has been diagnosed with an autoimmune issue that taking the sugar out, that it did not improve their health.
Agreed.
So,
Agreed.
people want to play with it. I see all of the lupus butterflies, the purple, and I'm not trying to downplay it. It is a very serious diagnosis, and the symptoms are real. But what you're really treating, in my opinion, my experience, this is you asking me about me. What I was treating and the pain that I was having was directly tied to the sugar I continued to eat. So even though I wasn't eating a Snicker bar, I was eating a boatload of potatoes, right? I was literally going to McAllister's eating a double potato with black beans with a salad on the cheese and no meat. I'm telling the people, don't give me any meat, right? Like anything, you can give me everything but the meat. And then I'm gonna have a chocolate chip cookie to go with it.
Wow.
So autoimmune was being fed royally, if you will, for what it takes to continue with those symptoms. I have zero of those symptoms at this point.
Amazing.
Yeah,
Amazing.
you
And
couldn't
it's just
even,
like
my
you,
face was so, I'll have to send you some pictures, or maybe you've seen them on the website. My face was so swollen that when I look at my pictures now, I'm like, who is this person? And it literally was the inflammation from what I was eating that was causing those symptoms.
wow. No, you are definitely aging backwards for sure. And it's like,
Thank
if you
you.
hear this like one time, it's like, yeah, okay. Then you hear it 10 times, then you hear it 100 times. And then it's like the statement that you said that, again, I completely agree with you. It's such a challenge to find anybody that this doesn't work for, not only for like the primary reason that they do it, but also 20 other things that end up getting so much better. The puffiness that you said, like the skin issues, the athlete's foot I used to have, the way my shoulder would get injured. You mentioned foot issues, all of those things. Like you hear every version of all those things just improving so much when people, remove that kind of stuff. And you are an absolute pro at doing this, by the way. I love in your content how much you emphasize that sugar equals plants, plants equal sugar, and you'll interchange those words. And it's like, well, wait a second. I was thinking sugar was just the cookie and the four corners of the cake that you were eating. Which makes my sugar addict brain think, ooh, that sounds really good. But it's also in all the other things. And you don't think like apple, sugar, broccoli, sugar. Like that's what it is. So I really just wanted to like overemphasize that point.
Yes, yes. And that's the struggle that I have with people. Well, I'll say the struggle they have with me is that when I have that that level of conversation, or in my teaching, is why I'm, the advocate, the coach, and the educator. When I'm educating and I'm sharing that with people, they're struggling to visualize that you just ate sugar. Like, people are going out to dinner in restaurants where they feel like, oh, today I'm going to have a vegetable plate, right? Because I am attempting to be healthy. And so you have this vegetable plate. And even if you have all vegetables, you did green beans, cabbage, greens, and a potato, they all came from the ground. There's this, it's from God because it came from the ground. It is sugar. So I'm not trying to tell you don't have that. I tell people, I'm not trying to tell you that. Really, I am. But what I'm really trying to tell you is count the sugar. You just had, I worked with a young lady back in December, pescatarian, fairly small, 150 pounds, wanted to lose 15 pounds. She had been practicing pescatarian for 10 years, avid runner, highly, athletic. She could not lose weight, did her blood work. She was a tenth of a point from being pre-diabetic. So I tell people, if you're a tenth of a point from being pre-diabetic, you didn't get pre-diabetes, but let me give you what you did get: insulin resistance,
Yeah.
right? You are all the way in for insulin resistance. So let's unpack that and talk about it. So she had no idea. I mean, fairly, in our world, we say fine lady, sexy, everything looking good. Who's questioning what's going on with her? She's not the, what we would noticeably see insulin resistance, right? She was able to take sugar out of her way of eating for a month, and she released 13 pounds.
Wow.
She said, in all of my running, she said I was just eating too many carbs, and I take them through this daily, to watch what they're eating. We unpack what they're eating. I mean, I have some clients that are eating 300 carbs a day,
Yeah.
and they
Right.
have no idea how that metabolizes and how many. So I do teach them how many teaspoons of sugar that is, and your body can only have one. So back to your earlier question, once people understand that a teaspoon of sugar is too much. And so what I ask the question often is, would you give a teaspoon of sugar to your car every day and think that it's going to continue to function properly?
Yeah.
Why are you doing it to your body?
I love that. Oh, that's
Mhm.
so well said. I absolutely love that. And yeah, it's your whole thing. It's the knowledge. I'm not telling you what to eat or not eat, but I'm telling you that these things all contain sugar, and you can decide what you want to do about it. That's totally fair. And I think you and I have both seen this a ton of times. If I had a client that told me they were eating mostly protein, they were getting some fat, and they love broccoli, they just eat broccoli, I wouldn't create too much of a fuss. I wouldn't be say, oh, it's like I wouldn't get down their throats, and I'd say that's totally fine. But I think you and I have both seen enough continuous glucose monitors where people eat things where you would never assume. Some asparagus, a little bit of broccoli, some bell peppers. It can affect your blood sugar way more than people would assume. And they're, fibrous vegetables sometimes.
Yeah. So it's funny you said that, because I'm working with a client who's actually a family member who had an apple. He said, I was having a rough day. I know I need to check my blood sugar, but I was just going to grab an apple, that's pretty light. And then I was going to grab something later. It says blood sugar spiked to 200. He had been
Wow.
100. It was like this huge spike to 200. And I'm saying, so when your body is on high sugar, then it's going to go into hold everything mode, right? And it is these nuances that we're not hearing at the doctor's office, right? In most cases, it's what we're not hearing from the nutritionist. Here in Jackson, I've sat in classes where I took myself to these health diabetes classes to listen to what they're teaching people who are actually diabetics. And it takes everything in me to not just slide under the table and die myself. Like, I'm on a high sugar just listening to you talk, right? I need to check the things that they're making okay, saying things like, a 7A1C is good. I'm like, it's not. Saying that, change from this white rice and start eating brown rice. Let's go from eating white bread to brown bread. Like, not even teaching what what carbohydrates do, making something about carbohydrates be healthy or necessary. It just, I'm
It's
sitting there, and I
infuriating.
did it for, they had a series at one of the local places here. It was for about a 4-week series. It was every Tuesday, and I went every Tuesday, and it was a 90-minute class where I just wanted to gather everybody in the room and say, hey, y'all come with me. Come on, let's go. But I was very respectful. I didn't even get my card out to anyone. I did ask some challenging questions that I don't think
Good.
that anybody in the room could answer, but I asked them in a way so that the audience could at least think. But it is those things that we are, that's who we're up against, right? You got a whole platform, it's free. You have this beautiful edifice that you can bring people to. And I'm struggling to get somebody to let me use a room for 12 people.
Wow.
Right. And so that's the hard part. So you post it because you have a social media budget. I have no budget, right? So it's a grassroots effort for us, but it's also their struggle. Like, who are you compared to this big giant over here that's telling me that I can eat this as long as I do moderation?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
Yeah.
the balance what you eat, drink, and do sticker that's on every vending machine of Coca-Cola. I was just talking to a podcast guest we hosted recently, and he's going to do an experiment where he's going to feed himself recipes from the American Diabetes Association and watch his blood sugar. And yeah, you already know, you're already shaking your head. Those recipes are disastrous for anybody, especially if you have diabetes, any type.
No,
It's insane. Yeah, no.
no. The stuff that they post online, some nights I just screenshot it because I say at some point I'm going to use it in a class of what not to do. Here's what not to do if you are insulin resistant or if you are pre-diabetic. But it it's the mainstream. I mean, it's what we
Yeah,
are fighting against. Essentially, is just, and people really, I've had people like stop talking to me. I've had people delete me as their friend on Facebook because I am saying that I eat meat. And I tell them I don't promote carnivore. I say, but when you come and tell me that sugar is in everything, what I say back to them is sugar is not in everything. It's not in meat, right? The meat is not going to metabolize as sugar as a carbohydrate would, right? Is it going to hook up with protein and fat and make glucose if you need it? Yeah. But is it going to spike blood sugar like this carbohydrate? It's not.
yeah,
And so I agree with you that what we've been taught, the labels that they, lie to us on the front, it is the grassroots effort that we continue to try to give this awareness. Don't go do what I did, right? But at least get the information so that you can make some informed decisions about how you're going to fuel your body.
yeah. Well, I love that. And I love asking this question because we all have a different kind of nuance of the way we explain it and the way we answer this question. And I love the way I've heard you explain this in the past. It's something that you have mentioned a few times already, insulin resistance. Um, how would you explain insulin resistance to somebody in a way that they could understand?
Yeah, so I have a couple of scenarios. Remember, I'm a teacher, I was an elementary teacher, so I can have a lot of fun with this. Two come to mind. One of them is just simply when we had full service gas stations and you showed up at the pump, you sat in the car, you did nothing, and some fella came to take care of all the fluids in your car, take care of pumping the gas in your car, and somehow the pump handle has gotten stuck, right? And the guy is now full of gas. The gas is getting in all the wrong places. To me, that's how I see insulin resistance, right? The guy was meant to monitor it as sugar needs to be monitored when it comes in the body so that it goes to the places it needs to go. When sugar, when insulin is overworked, just like this guy, he say, take this job and shove it. I'm done, right? And when there is no regulator for sugar anymore, then this sugar that you ate then becomes the inflammation in your body. So we don't get to pick where it goes. Like I have some places that I would like to send it so that it makes my body look different, right? Shaped up in different places. However, I don't get to pick that. And so this inflammation ends up anywhere. So I have a thing called the circle of hearts that has all of these different ailments on it, and they represent glaucoma for the eyes, right? Type 1, type 2, type 3 diabetes. These are all these different manifestations depending on where this sugar that you ate that didn't have insulin regulating it, where those things land. So you got arthritis now, and you think it's because you got old or you've used those knees and hips so much. No, it is the inflammation that is causing that pain that you're having. For me, it was autoimmune lupus was my manifestation. I tell people, some of us will never become diabetic, but it doesn't mean that we're not insulin resistant and sick, right? So
Sure.
my gout was a direct correlation to sugar, these sugar crystals in my toe, right? That's what was happening to my feet. I was just sharing with my husband. We went to eat at a restaurant in Memphis where we had smoked wings, but here I go, going dip in the little habanero barbecue sauce. It was within hours, I could feel it in the back of my heel. It's like he says, Zoop, you crazy lady. This what you gonna do? This not how we play anymore, right? So it is those things once you clear your system out, right? The insulin is sensitive then. So I tell people that the goal is to go from insulin resistance to insulin sensitivity. You want to have this intimate relationship with insulin so that it serves you well. But if it quits on you, then there is no regulator anymore. There's no telling where sugar may land, rashes on your neck, dandruff in your hair, toes being amputated. I tell people I want to step on your toes because I know you still got them, right? So
Mm.
hear my message so you keep your toes. So that's how I kind of break insulin resistance down for people so that they can bring it home to themselves as a regulator that you get a chance to sit and eat. Someone else is going to do the regulating. And if you overwork the regulator, then we got problems, bottom
Yeah.
line. And we
I
just
like that.
never know where it's going to land, which things, like there's some things that have improved with me that I didn't even think were tied to it. And it's the same thing that I hear from my clients. They were like, I had this spot on me and I looked and it's not even there anymore. It's gone. They was like, it was there forever, for years. One lady sent me a message, and this may be TMI. She was like, I'm so serious. Like my poop don't stink no more. She's like, I used to go in the bathroom flipping the fan on and spraying it. I don't do that anymore. It's like you're not eating waste anymore, right? Your body is using that which you give it. So that's my take on insulin resistance. It took me a while to really understand it. I had been saying it, but not, it was those type of analogies that kind of came home to me. Another one that I use is like a bag of leaves, right? Literally, when we are inflamed, I say we're walking around with a bag of leaves on us. I tell people this weight I got right here, that ain't meat. That's some plant-based stuff that my body has not metabolized yet, right? And so it's kind of the same concept as when you are raking leaves and you continue to stuff them in the bag and there's nowhere for it to go. There's no regulator for it. There's no out for it. And so, I mean, we like a bag of leaves. That's what,
Yeah.
to me, that's what fat is. That's what inflammation is, because it ain't meat.
You're right. Yeah. And I love those comparisons. I think anybody could at least start to understand the problem. And then hopefully they take the next step and realize, well, wait a second, how are we treating things like type 2 diabetes? When insulin is not working, we're resistant to insulin, we have too much insulin, it's not doing what it's supposed to do. What do? We give people insulin. Are you kidding me? That's the stupidest thing ever. And like just asking a really simple question of like, okay, if you get more insulin, what is happening to the sugar? Where is it going? It's like that bag of leaves that you said. Like the insulin is getting the sugar out of the blood. It is not in the blood anymore. That's good. Where is it going? Does it just disappear? Are you getting rid of it somehow? Like, of course not. It's still there. It's in the body. The blood sugar is going to other places and causing more problems.
Absolutely. And I like the way you summed that up as well. And therein lies the problem. I mean, I'm meeting people who've been on metformin for 10 and 13 years. It's supposed to be a temporary, you know, drug, if you will. People have been on it for 10 years. They do this, take this sugar out of their diet, and their blood sugar starts to tank. I had a lady, I was like, I need you to go see your doctor. I need you to go to urgent care. She had been on metformin for 10 years, had never had a decrease. Every year she was getting an increase until she was up to 1,000 milligrams. And
Wow.
now she has been reduced down to 500 milligrams at least. We're trying to do better with monitoring her sugar. So the key is this is reversible, right? This is the sabotage that we have unknowingly done to ourselves, right? But thus our theme is if you know better, like you just have to do better. Like this is the gap. Now we're filling the gap. We're being the bridge over the gap. How then can you turn this around and live your life better? I was working with a woman who she actually came to a she'll be on my show on Saturday. She came to the event that Dr. Berry and Tony, Dr. Hampton, they tag team this show for, I mean, this event for me. And she wasn't eating meat. I mean, the lady was, I would say 300 pounds. I think she was 273 when she started. And she's lost 47 pounds
Wow.
since November. But guess what she's doing now? Eating meat. Dr. Bear was juggling like, girl, you know you want to eat that. Go eat that real. Because that's one thing that we do at our events. My husband and I do the food. We've not been able to find a caterer. So we actually provide the food in our event. My husband smokes and grills the meat, and I make the not sides, but the accompaniments, if you will, for the event. And we have a load of meat. And she left that day and became a meat eater again. And now she is retiring after 42 years. And now she has a whole new lease on life
Amazing.
just by not letting sugar control her. And
That's
so,
amazing.
what I want your audience to hear both of us say is that we're not just talking about improvements, we're talking about being healed, being made whole, living life like it's intended to be lived, where you are not having these pains. This is not a way of life. You know, I see people post like all their supplements and vitamins that they're taking, all of these, plant-based things, and I'm saying you could just have a steak, eat some ground beef. I'm my new favorite thing, Casey. I don't know if you are eating this or not, is beef fat.
I mix it in. I don't go straight to the beef fat, but I actually did just make a batch of pemmican, which is like really dried. You take basically like beef jerky and pulverize it into powder, and
Okay,
and then you blend it like 1 to 1 with beef fat, beef tallow, and it makes like the oldest form of like a granola bar essentially. That's all
you
beef
got
and
to
the
tell
beef
me
fat.
about it. I want to know about it.
Pretty good. Yeah, it was
The
pretty good.
beef fat, I have a butcher here in Jackson that I go and buy beef fat, and I don't. I will say when I first started eating it, I thought I could eat it just as a meal. Hear me, audience, you can't do that, especially if you still have fat to lose like me. I learned that with Craig and Maria, but I do partner it with, like today I had Tennessee River catfish, right? So I had the catfish and a little some beef fat on the side. But who knew, right? That's another one of our new. Who knew that you could eat this good? And that's what we pride ourselves on. No deprivation. Like you
Love it.
can eat good, and all the things that you thought were wrong for you are probably right for you. So I'm enjoying this. I'm enjoying getting to meet really great people, making great connections, but also eating good while feeling the best I've ever felt in my life. I've never felt this good, even as a teenager, because I was a big cake eater. I
Yeah.
never felt this good before.
Wow. Wow. Yeah. No, I totally agree. The ability to you can tell you're fully satiated at every meal and eat things that are totally enjoyable. Yeah, I'm not sick of carnivore at all. And I'm just wondering, looking back on you and your life, you mentioned being a teenager, feeling better now, different periods of time where you were vegetarian and vegan and, eating the corners of the cake and all those things. Like how, for somebody back then who looks at somebody like you now and thinks like, oh, I could never do that. I can't do that. I love cake too much. Vegetables are good for me. I need the lentils or whatever. How, besides what you just said about how amazing you feel, how would you help somebody at least get started along the path? Maybe even the same way that you did. Like, not the best to go and eat a bunch of keto treats and all those things, but hey, it got you on the path. It's a nice
Yeah.
bridge to get you to where you are today. How do you help people understand that like what you went through is a journey? It takes a little bit of time. Yeah. What advice would you give somebody who sees you and thinks I could never do that?
Absolutely. So one of the things is that it is a path. And I would say one of the first things is people can all relate with the car analogy. And so when I just ask people, would you put sugar in your gas tank? I pause, I wait, and then when they say no, I ask them why not. And they say things like, it's gonna tear it up. Dingo, bingo. It is the same thing that it is doing to our body. So I often say that I don't teach people to be carnivore. What I want them to understand is the impact that sugar in any form has on their body. So that's the starting place for me, is starting to figure out how to decrease that. So if you are a burger eater, right? Let's say I used to tell my son, and my son is on his journey as well. He's 31. But I used to say to my son, can you, rather than eating these three pieces of things, you got two buns and a piece of meat. How about if you can have three pieces of meat and no bun at all? Let's start there. I'm gonna let you have your cheese, your pickle, your onion, and your lettuce if you like it, right? I just want you to take the bun out because the bun is a utensil. It is the same as sheetrock. It's a building agent, right? It's the thing that we build with. It is the thing that's going to stick around you, not the meat. Even if at that point you are still dibbling and dabbling, if you will, with French fries, if I can just start you out with getting that bun out of it and figuring out that that's a utensil and we don't eat utensils, and start to use a fork, those are kind of some of the simple things that I try to get people to consider as they're going on this journey. Don't bring the bread to the table. Just say no. Like, I literally will be out because I do a thing called Restaurant Rebel with people. I'm like, when you come to this restaurant and they beat you this big bowl of, this is the cheap way for them to feed you. Are you cheap? Right? Are you not worth more than some bread versus having some meat? So I have, when I tell you I could probably do a 10-hour show with just the analogies, even for people in church. God is even giving me scriptures to, you know, give folks to, like, even the prodigal son had a fatted calf, and y'all try not to eat the fatted calf, right? So it is those kind of simple things that he continues to gift me with, if you will, to help people understand, why you should at least start trying to do something to see if you see a difference. And I've not met anyone. Yeah, I'm just trying to go over my time. I have one lady who, her problem is, I think she over exercises. She's, along with probably eating more carbs than she should, and then she over exercises. So, but other than that, the people that I meet that really sit and take in the information, they may not implement immediately, and they do treat me like the food police, even though I tell them I'm not. Because I tell them, hey, you may catch me at the cookie store. I don't want you to judge me. I want you to come in there and get me and remind me of all this stuff I just said. Girl, we don't eat cookies no more. Like, come on out of here, right? And so that's how I want to be treated, because it's a community. Like, if you see me out somewhere at the airport and I done pulled up to a bucket of French fries, I just need you to tap me on the shoulder. Come on, don't do that, right? Because we are not perfect in this. There is no perfection in this. This is all growth for each one of us. But what I am addicted to now is how much better I feel. Woo!
Love it.
I wouldn't trade it for the world. I wouldn't trade it for those four corners on a cake. We do birthday steak around here now. We literally put
Yeah.
candles on a steak for our birthdays. Now, my son just had his 31st birthday. I have a picture of him, 31, on a steak. So, yeah, so that's
Love
what
it.
I think. I think if we can just continue to get people to try something, give it a try, give it 7 days, give it, I've not had anybody that stopped at the 7 day mark. If they did, they went right back to it because how they felt for those 7 days, they were looking for that feeling again.
Yep. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's so well said. DeNitra, I understand why you have come so highly recommended by Robin
Thank
and
you.
Natalie. This has been such a fun conversation. I love your energy and your passion and your ability to communicate and share this message is infectious for sure. I would love to have you back on sometime
Sure.
to continue the conversation. I've just thoroughly enjoyed chatting with you. But
Absolutely.
for now, DeNitra, where would you like people to go to find you and connect with you, and be sure to connect with you and your work as well?
Absolutely. If you're on YouTube and see this video, then my QR code will take you to all of my contact information. My website is Nutritional Knowledge. It's spelled KNEW, nutritionalknowledge.com. If you're looking for me on Instagram, it's at Educator Coach Educator. That's the same as my YouTube. And then on Facebook, I'm DeNitra Davis. We do have a Facebook page that is nutritional knowledge as well. But nutritional knowledge is the only nutritional knowledge out there. Just remember that it's KNEW, nutritional knowledge. Because we believe if you knew better, could you, should you, would you do better? And our motto is let's do better together.
Love it. That's amazing. You also have the podcast as well. What was the name of that?
Great. Thank you for reminding me. So I just started my own podcast show. It is Nutritional Knit. It is still right now. Those videos are uploaded to my YouTube channel at Advocator, Coach, and Educator. I
Excellent.
also am on a show on Monday nights. I co-host this show with Carnivorous Grandma and G Brown, and it is Hey Sister Girl. We target that show for women on Monday nights at 7 o'clock Eastern time. Central is 6 o'clock. And then the Nutritional Knit, my show is on Saturdays, 3:30 Central time, every Saturday. This coming Saturday is my second episode. So I'm just getting
Fantastic.
into it, but would love to see some of you there and get your feedback. I'm wide open for learning.
That's fantastic. Wow, you are doing a lot of work on a lot of different platforms to get the message out there. And I'm excited that you're starting your own as well. And we'll be sure to link to all of that in the show notes so people can find that easily. And as you mentioned, if somebody's watching this on YouTube, the QR code is quite helpful to just take you there immediately. But DeNitra, like I said, so much fun, so much passion. Thank you so much for making this information accessible for us and being so willing to share your message. Really, really appreciate you and appreciate you taking the time to be on our show today.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for having me, and thank you for all the service and work that you're doing in this space too. As I continue to grow and evolve, just meeting great people has been amazing, and having reference of people to continue to drive, as you said earlier, so that we all can find what feels right to us, the person that feels right to us, so that we can link up with them. So people
Yeah.
need to find their people. So thank you. I
A-
appreciate
a-
it.
Absolutely. Thank you for the kind words, and I'll be sure to reserve a giant hug for you at the next conference that we are at. But for now, thank you so very much for taking the time to be on our show today.
Thank you so much.
Absolutely. And this has been another episode of Boundless Body Radio.